Okay, we are live.
Are we live?
Hold on.
No, okay, sorry. I
We are
posted
now.
that.
We
on
are now.
Facebook.
We're starting right now.
We are cool.
Okay.
Hello, internet.
This is Radio Sheridan, live from the historic Rogers Park neighborhood in Chicago, Illinois. This is a show about whatever the hell we feel like. And on the panel, as always, we have
Julia Newman.
Charles Pigozzi.
and yours truly, William Bermudez. Let's start with the quote of the day. Given that last week was Thanksgiving, I figured we would read from William Bradford's notes on Plymouth Plantation. This is
Happy late Thanksgiving to all of our listeners.
Yes, indeed.
By the way.
So this is his depiction of the first of the what has been known today as the first Thanksgiving. This is the autumn of 1621. Nobody knows the exact date of it, but this is generally the we just know it in general that it is the that it happened in that time. So let's read from here. They began now to gather in the small harvest they had, and to fit up their houses and dwellings against winter, being all well recovered in health and strength, and had all things in good plenty. For as some were thus employed in affairs abroad, others were exercised in fishing, about cod and bass and other fish, of which they took good store, of which every family had their portion. All the summer there was no want, and now became to come in store of fact. That's a fact. As a matter of fact, he also wrote in, I believe, these notes about what he referred to as a, quote, compact with the Indians. And this, essentially, it talks about, like, you can tell he's very much biased in that he's trying to make the colonizers look very, they want to compromise with them, but really that's, if you studied history and you know about Native American affairs historically in this country, it went nothing like that.
Typical dead white guy shit.
Typical dead white guy shit. Yeah. Okay. Well, now that we've got that out of the way, did you guys have a good Thanksgiving?
I did. How was yours?
It was all right. I was at my parents' house. We had a couple family friends over. Had turkey, stuffing, the whole the traditional kind of stuff, and beans. Got like a big thing of baked beans. Just had that on the side.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I went to Minneapolis and to have Thanksgiving with my family. That was pretty nice.
Cool. What'd you do, Charlie?
Went up to Wisconsin with some family.
Fun stuff. Yeah. All right. Well then, so let's talk about what's been going on the last 2.5 weeks since we were last on the air.
George Bush died.
He did indeed. Yeah, he died. I believe.
Thank God.
Yesterday.
Died.
Yesterday evening, he passed away.
I do not miss him.
Yeah, yesterday evening, George H.W. Bush, the father of George W. Bush, H.W. was the 41st president from 1989 to 93, passed away at the age of 94. His wife, Barbara Bush, passed away a few months ago as well. They're actually married for 73 years.
Wow.
I thought that was pretty impressive. That was really impressive.
The thing, even I don't agree with his politics or his policies or Desert Storm or any of that, but at least he conducted himself like a respectable human being. I hate to keep coming back to this comparison where at least he's not like Trump, but it really, when I was reading the articles about his death, it really did make me think of that, and I think there's some, I forget where this was, but there was some picture where it's he's just smiling and laughing with Obama, and it's kind of nice.
Yeah, they had that sort of kinship of world leaders. They may have disagreed vehemently on some political issues, but they had this at least sort of cordial attitude towards each other.
Yeah,
which is something we really do not see as often in today's politics.
I think it's in the last few years it's kind of just gone downhill.
Yeah,
in terms of that.
Because of polarization in terms of our politics. It's almost instead of seeing someone you disagree with as just someone you disagree with, you start to see them not even as an opponent, like an outright enemy in some cases.
Yeah.
Right. So
I mean, every empire falls. The great Roman Empire fell eventually.
I mean, that's a good topic. It didn't really fall overnight, and there's no sort of historically one agreed upon date about when the Roman Empire fell. I mean, you could talk about when they moved the capital Constantinople.
Yeah, how gradually decreased in size until essentially it's the former Byzantine Empire basically formed it.
Yeah. But
yeah. That's interesting you bring that up, Charlie, because we think about how America is seen as the empire, an empire that's too big to fail in some cases. Yeah. Although I don't think although in my opinion, America's going to maintain
Well, I mean, I feel eventually we're just not going to be as important anymore. If you look around us, if you look at our infrastructure, if you look at our education system, that it's all deteriorating.
It's deteriorating by international standards. Like there are countries that are superior, especially in Northern Europe, too, in their education systems, just based on the
Public
quality.
But I mean, culturally,
Public education,
like we're decaying. Like we have a massive opioid crisis in this country. Like
we do.
We are decaying as a society.
Do you guys know anyone who is affected by the opioid crisis? I personally
do, actually.
not.
I know somebody that passed away of a heroin overdose, but
Oh jeez.
yeah, like she went to it's a friend of mine. We actually went to high school together, but other than that, like I mean, like
someone at Evan, would I know them?
probably not. She was in my grade. Yeah, I don't know if you know her.
Excuse me.
Probably not.
Probably not, but yeah, it affects a lot of people. I mean, just like the fact, I think a big thing that happened, you know, I was discussing this with someone, this was a few months ago, and he said that like a good thing to do, he believed that, and the guy I was talking to is much more of a libertarian than even I am. He said that what America should do is decriminalize all drugs, tax them heavily, and use the money towards rehabilitation and education.
Well,
I can understand the philosophy behind that.
Yeah, I do too. I disagree sort of on the principle of like legalizing drugs like heroin and cocaine and ecstasy.
I mean, Portugal does that.
The drugs there are decriminalized. They're not legalized.
Yeah, they're decriminalized.
Yeah. Portugal's a pretty interesting case study in that kind of thing.
I mean, I guess understanding with that is coming to the conclusion that humans are going to do drugs no matter what.
Yeah,
that's true.
And that it's very complicated, and the war on drugs in America fails especially hard because people think that like, oh, we're this Judeo-Christian wholesome nation.
And even if we are, that's not going to stop people from doing drugs.
Right.
I mean, that was I think they sort of were like leaning towards those kind of arguments when they started the war on drugs in the 80s, but
we're better than this as a nation.
Like all that stupid bullshit. Like, well, and the thing is, my take on that is like, one, people are gonna do the drugs anyways. Two, it's cheaper to send, at least for people who are like repeat offenders. It's whatever. I can understand like giving them some criminal sentence lighter than what we have now.
Lighter than what we have now. Another thing is like if we maintaining like very harsh like penalties in a sense that almost like gives drugs this sort of like mystifying quality to young folks. Like it seems like sort of a rebellious thing to do, and that's sort of, if you know of like the organization Dare to keep kids off of drugs, like the old that like there were studies that showed that actually it was not only was it a joke, it actually encouraged more drug use in the end. There have actually been studies about this because like it made it seem like the cool hip thing to do to go against this. And like I mean, I remember in high school like the biggest burnouts were the kids that wore the Dare shirts. They wore them ironically. Like that was just almost like a thing that they did back in the day.
Adam Ruins Everything does an episode on that.
Oh, interesting.
He does like how the war on drugs was.
Who is that? It's another YouTuber.
No, he has an episode.
It's a TV show, I believe.
Yeah, on TLC, I think.
Is it on TLC? I thought it was on like Showtime or something.
Yeah, I think so. He has a show.
Yeah.
Anyways, the thing about that is it's higher stakes than just like drug education programs in the U.S. Like, if you want to talk about like decriminalization, at least in my opinion, it would immensely help, or like at least take huge bites out of the drug war and the drug cartels, because once the products, if let's say like weed is legalized federally,
right? Well, you wouldn't have this massive opioid addiction either.
Well,
if people wanted to get like high,
if we
not as intensely as now, maybe.
Right.
Maybe I'm not going to get into that, but what I will say is that once you because the people who are like drug traders and drug lords and all that, they thrive off of the fact that, or they have thrived historically off of the fact that weed is illegal, so there's a high demand for it, and if they can provide a high supply, it pays off a lot. Versus, weed's now legal in like, I don't know how many states, like 8 or 10 states or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And, like people there, there might be some like sketchy stuff that goes on, but I think overall, it's people like growing their own weed, or like companies who are like, legally allowed to grow their weed. So it's one, they know where it's coming from, and two, it's not coming from cartels, so they can't make money from weed anymore.
Yeah. Like, on my mom's side of my family, which is the Freeman Welsh Johns Witkowski side, they have a bunch of They actually have a bunch of farmland that was basically my grandma and was like my great aunts and uncles owned a lot of land, and since a lot of them were starting to pass away, my mom as well as her brother and all of them are starting to actually inherit some land. And there's been serious talk about if it's all located in like south central Iowa, sort of south of Des Moines, and there's serious discussion amongst the members of my family that if Iowa ever legalizes marijuana, then we're considering like actually we're considering potentially growing marijuana on that land because it could be a major
shit.
a major catch crop. Yeah,
Wow.
we've had this discussion with members of our family. Like some of us are a bit worried because we're worried about like getting potentially involved in like mafia-esque kind of stuff. We're not really sure. Like,
does that happen?
I don't know if it does.
The weed industry.
I don't know whether we don't really know whether it does or not, and that's sort of why we're concerned. But if that does happen, like I would be fully in favor of it. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in that, especially if in rural areas where there's a lot of farmland. Like traditionally, like Iowa crops, like you think of like corn and soybeans.
Yeah.
But now, like that could be used for that kind of stuff now that those industries are starting to develop. Now that more and more parts of the country are legalizing cannabis.
Yeah. Also, another thing about that, I don't know if anyone in your family brought this up when you were talking about it, but like, even if like Iowa it legalizes it and it's legal in like Colorado and California now and Washington and all that, like it's still federally illegal. So although I mean right now, and especially like the precedent under President Obama was that he said he was not going to enforce.
He turns a blind eye to it.
Yeah. It's a waste of resources and time and everything.
And I think it remains to be seen, like still to extent what this administration is going to do about it. From what we're seeing right now, it seems that they're turning a blind eye to it.
I don't think they've been enforcing.
Not really.
Weed
it
laws.
seems as inefficient to do that now that so many states are doing it on their own. Especially if you think about states' rights. A lot of Republicans are so pro states' rights. Are there going to be states' rights on this as well?
Yeah, it's like the libertarian thing.
Well, I mean, the president's more focused on like harassing immigrants and
you spreading anti-immigration hysteria.
Oh my God.
We could talk a little bit about that. I mean, I don't want to get into what they're doing at the border, but like in terms of like using tear gas in Mexico and that kind of stuff.
I've heard that they're actually putting numbers on some immigrants.
Tattooing numbers?
You mean putting
Not
numbers?
tattooing.
No, I hope not.
But marking them to see like if they've already gone to the border seeking asylum, they've been denied or not.
Wow. Marking them, like putting like tracking devices,
putting Sharpie.
Oh, writing numbers on them.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess
Still, that's pretty bad.
Ethical.
Yeah. Oh God. I will say this, like the fact,
I think if the hypothetical situation, if troops started firing,
Mexico would have like specific reason to declare war on the United States if that was going to happen.
I don't think Mexico.
I don't think they will, but they would have just cause to do so.
You'd have.
They could like definitely file a complaint in NATO, and like other countries would get angry at the U.S. than they already are right now.
You'd have like protests all across the country.
You would hope so.
I would hope so. I would hope that the protests would be very aggressive and like.
Okay, here's an unpopular opinion.
All right.
And I'm not anti-immigrant, and I'm not saying I support Trump or his border policies or any of that. But I think that the immigrants, people from like El Salvador and Honduras and Guatemala, all these people from like South Central.
Is that
a black helicopter?
No, it's a plane going over.
Okay.
That's a nice.
But it's not a black helicopter.
nice background ambiance.
We're talking about the government. And
live from O'Hare, right?
So, anyways, but I think those migrants, they should have stayed in Mexico because Mexico said
they're not from Mexico. They're
from
I
understand.
Honduras and Guatemala. Maybe,
yeah. Mexico is
Honduras.
On the whole, I mean, I'm not saying Mexico is like the safest place in the world, but on the whole, it's a lot safer than those Central American countries.
It hasn't been destabilized. It hasn't been destabilized by the CIA, to the degree that those Central American countries have.
Well, I heard that Mexico doesn't want the.
Really? I thought they said that they would take the refugees. No. They would like welcome them.
Maybe like while they were going towards the United States, they would help them. But I don't know if they would like.
I don't know enough about Mexican politics to.
I'll look that up. You guys.
Yeah, because like I know that they've been saying like as as migrants continue north up through Mexico, then they've been fine with that. But I don't know if they're perhaps they are allowing them to like settle in certain parts of the country.
I mean, the biggest hypocrisy of it all is that the people coming, the asylum seekers, are escaping conditions from a country that were created by United States foreign policy and imperialism, capitalism, what may you call it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact.
And yet you have white Americans saying that, oh, they're not welcome when...
Yeah, I mean, I have one of my aunts on my dad's side lived in Guatemala for a while. Like she, they all grew up in Chicago, but around like 2003, she moved to Guatemala and lived there for a while. And she last time she visited us, this would have been like a few years ago. She was talking about like just how like that whole area is like, and I assume it's because at least in small parts of the United States meddling in it, like particularly in that region. But a lot of like it's almost like Cuba, like to an extent, because there's just so much poverty. There's like so much widespread poverty, and all the wealth in the entire country is basically consolidated within the ruling parties. Yeah, there's so little economic, like, I don't even want to say economic freedom. Like you can't even call it that, because there's just so little money among the populace, among the working classes.
Let's see this article. It's not clear whether Mexico was welcoming migrants. Yeah, I'm seeing things that like would indicate like there's a lot of anti-immigrant. You know, I almost ironically, there's a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment in Mexico towards these migrants.
Well, okay, I guess an analogy for that is it stems from. I've heard that, I guess, okay, there's this one article I read that said the left case for being against immigration. And that argument that somehow immigrants hurt American labor is, like, they are
the backbone of the American
that
labor
number one,
force.
that's the biggest thing, that there is no left case for anti-immigrants, and because if you're anti-immigrant, you are anti-labor. If you look at say the Industrial Workers of the World, which is an international union-based organization, that any kind of anti-foreigner or anti-immigrant sentiment is anti-labor. You are not a union if you are exclusive. You're
Charlie,
just a fucking club.
Charlie, this might trigger you, but I'm against open borders.
Okay.
Open borders were like, okay, anyone who wants can come here anytime that they want. Like, our infrastructure would be overwhelmed. The burden would fall like largely on American taxpayers to pay for people who, at least when they initially arrive, would not be able to pay for themselves or contribute anything.
Statistically,
much.
Immigrants are the largest contributor to new businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I believe that.
I disagree. I just think it's so hypocritical of white Americans to judge immigrants from the Mexican border when, if you are white, you are not Mexican. You are not of indigenous people's descent.
Well, I mean, not everyone in Mexico is
if you are of Mexican
indigenous.
descent, you are some part of you of at least 40% is like indigenous.
That's not true.
I would
That's
say
not
this.
true.
I disagree with what you say when you say that if you are white, you are not Mexican, because one can be racially white and ethnically Mexican.
Yeah, Mexico is like more ethnically diverse than like some people might believe.
I guess in terms of if you are of European descent, if you're white and European descent,
if you're Spanish, if your family colonized Mexico like back in the 16th century, if you like Spain, Spain colonized that whole area, so you could be of European descent going forward. Back and still be Mexican.
Yeah, no, Charlie. There's, like walking around Chicago, it might be hard to believe, but like in Mexico, there are a lot of people who have like, I don't want to say like 100% European DNA ancestry, but like they're like, they look like I do. Like they could be pale and maybe have red hair.
Same in Puerto Rico too.
Yeah. No, it's totally like not.
You just have to have a lot of fucking nerve to say that. Like, again, looking historically at borders in the United States, like all of Western United States was part of Mexico.
Yeah, that's
true. I think
true.
that whole idea of having a border at that region is fucking stupid.
What would you suggest?
Historically
it was stupid. I'll agree with you there.
Yeah,
but
would you suggest just getting rid of a border and allowing it? Like, would you what is your opinion of passports, for example? Do you think there should be do you think people should be able to just go from country to country as they please without having to show any identification?
Right. Okay. In the grand scheme of things, I don't like borders. I think we should just all be citizens of the world, of Earth. Grand scheme of things, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I think
that's my
idealistic.
internationalist, communist self coming out. But if we're looking at the United States, I think that borders should be relaxed. I don't think it should be to the point where every single person is being judged. It should be like how it was when you had immigrants from Europe arriving at Ellis Island.
I mean, that's not a bad idea. Like, if you know about Ellis Island, 98%, I don't know the exact number. It was somewhere between 95 and about 98% of people were allowed to go in. Like, there were in general, they did track people's criminal backgrounds, although it wasn't to the extent that they could do it today. Because I mean, just to be fair, a lot of them wouldn't have been available. Like, a lot of those records wouldn't.
When I mean open border, I mean to the extent you are allowed in this country. If you're a criminal, you're not allowed. You are allowed into this country. Full exception. If you're a criminal, if you killed someone, you need to be vetted. That
gets into the whole, how much faith do we have in our U.S. legal system to
right. Well, that's why it needs funding.
Investigate and
that whole part of our government, that's what I mean. I don't. It's not open up the doors. It's not. When I mean open borders, I don't mean in the sense that, it's open, everyone's allowed to come in.
You mean there shouldn't be as much regulation at the border?
Right.
Okay.
The percentage of people that are bad and, say, committed crimes is so insignificant and
in the
small.
United States and Mexico, perhaps, but there are other parts of the world where that may not be the case, necessarily.
Right, but that the people in the so-called caravan, the asylum seekers, are there for,
most of them are
legitimate
most of them are there because they're escaping a
war. They're escaping war.
They're escaping war.
Yeah, those people should. I already said I'm against open borders, but those people should absolutely be granted asylum. No question about it.
But you should be allowed in this country no matter what.
Perhaps.
If you didn't kill someone, if you're not a criminal, you should be allowed in this country.
I don't know. Again, that gets into the whole stress on the immigration system. With the current systems we have now, I think that's not really a realistic thing to say.
We would need significant reform of how we process migrants for that to occur.
It says our
awful. It should jump back up in a sec. Yeah, for some reason, I don't know if it probably has to do with the internet connection here because it can be spotty at times. But once in a while, it'll say you'll either start buffering or it's going to we'll drop out for a few seconds, drop back in. But we are live right now.
Okay.
I'm looking at this on YouTube.
Yeah. No, live back. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. I have OBS right here, and it has a green, yellow, red light thing, so I'm keeping an eye on that. Anyway, So from Bush to drugs to immigration, let's talk just a little bit about the shooting that occurred a couple weeks ago at where was it at? Oh yeah, it was at
Wait, hold on 1 second, guy.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me just pull this up here to make sure I get kind of a good overview to read off of. Okay. Yeah, so what we're going to be discussing basically is the shooting that happened at the Mercy Hospital in Chicago. Basically, the shooting occurred, was essentially 4 people were dead, including 1 Chicago police officer. I'm just pulling up an article from WLS here. Okay, so basically, I'm just going to read off of here. Hopefully this doesn't just start blurring music. Stop that. What is that even? What is that? Real review?
It's an ad.
Korean sponsor. Okay. Yeah, no one's sponsoring this. Okay. So basically, so as it turns out, we were trying to figure this out earlier. So the gunman was also killed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, what is this? I'm lost.
Okay, so basically, there was a shooting, I believe, when was this? This was a couple weeks ago. Monday the 19th. So this was, let's get this over here. Basically, 4 people were killed, including a Chicago police officer at a shooting in Mercy Hospital, which is, I believe, like 25th in Michigan. So it's like sort of the near south side, sort of near like what is that? It's about like a mile north of Bronzeville, I believe. Like 25th in Michigan, I think. Yeah.
Is that by the UFC campus?
UFC? No. UFC is in Hyde Park. That's further
okay.
south.
Yeah.
This is closer to IIT, actually. Yeah.
Oh, so south side.
Yeah, near south side, yeah.
Or Sox Stadium.
Yeah, kind of
Go
close.
Sox.
Like 7 miles
Go
or
White
7
Sox.
blocks away.
So yeah, around where Sox Park is, yeah. So basically, the shooting began as part of a domestic dispute between the shooter and one of the victims.
What happened was that it was a violent ex-husband of a woman who was a doctor.
Yeah.
And he was very pissed off. It probably has the details about what exactly pissed him off in this article, but
yeah. It's I see. Like they were gonna get married, but I guess O'Neill, who was the victim, called off the wedding, and that's sort of where the whole dispute occurred. Yeah, and there were about 4 people. As a matter of fact, I was subbing that day at Kenwood Academy, which is like 50th and Blackstone, which is in sort of like what's right on the border between Kenwood and Hyde Park, which is a little bit southwest of where this occurred, or actually south. Is that southeast? Oh, southeast actually, southeast. And when that happened, I was actually let me think. There was actually, I don't know if it was a fire drill or an evacuation in order to like just get the kids out, but like the fire alarm was going off, and this was right before. Was this actually? Hold on a second. This was apparently Monday afternoon, actually. Yeah, Monday after. This would have that's interesting. This would have actually been before the shooting occurred. See, I'd assumed that like after I heard about the shooting, I would assume that it would have been in response to it. But I guess it's just a coincidence that there happened to be an evacuation of the school like a couple hours before this occurred. It's kind of odd. Like, and the weird thing about it was like the reason I thought it was in relation to the shooting was because there was actually like normally like fire drills are like overdone in like 5 or 10 minutes. Like they evacuate the school, they make sure everybody's evacuated, they turn off the alarm, let everybody in. This happened at the end of first period going into second, and there was like a lot of confusion going back into the school over whether like kids were supposed to go second period. I didn't even leave the building because I had to prep, and I just like hung out in the teacher's lounge. But what I did was.
What do they have in the teacher's lounge? Sorry, I don't mean to sidetrack. I've always wondered.
Okay,
what
it depends on the school. It depends on the school. At Kenwood, they have like a couple tables and a pop machine and a microwave.
It's not that exciting.
And do they have a coffee maker?
Not this one. Some do, but this one doesn't. And they have a coffee machine also. Like some teachers will go in there and make copies when they have prep periods. But
okay.
Yeah, some of the nicer teachers' lounges like at Harvard, they'll have like vending machines.
What about TV? Do the nice ones have TV?
Some of them do. The one at Benito Juarez down in Pilsen does. But
at
anyway,
hospitals they have TVs in the like
in the waiting rooms.
No, not just in the waiting rooms, in the nurses and surgeons lounges.
Wow.
I went to it's kind of a sidetrack.
That's fine.
But I went to a hospital when we had to do our like freshman bio internship thing, and yeah, the nurses were all really nice to me, and they were like watching TV in their like nurses lounge. And
yeah, I remember I was subbing over at Kennedy down like near like a little bit west of Midway, and they were just like watching. They were just like chilling, watching The Price is Right in the teachers' lounge during one of the preps. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So about the shooting, like this raises like additional like questions about like the prevalence of guns in our society.
Yeah.
Regarding like to what extent there needs to be gun control,
right? And
which is a very tough issue for a lot of people, especially.
There needs to be more than there is now.
Yeah.
I guess are we all like? I guess in the sense we all support the idea of the Second Amendment.
Yeah, I mean the Second Amendment is the law of the land, and
right.
It has to be very.
Also, I mean the Second Amendment is like it's definitely up for debate though. Like to
what extent it covers certain
right.
laws.
Yeah.
I mean, like people have, like I've read like Scalia's decisions, and he gets very particular, and he analyzes that amendment to the point where he literally like analyzes the specific grammar and compares it to other documents that were written around that time, because like even something as simple as a comma, like to him, to like very strict textualists, can affect the meaning of an amendment. And
really? How do you interpret that though?
Okay, so the big debate.
Years and years of legal studies.
Exactly. And the big thing about, let me pull up. Can you, Charlie? Can you grab the Constitution book over there? Because that has I can just like straight up read the text. I pretty much know it, but I want to make sure I get like the grammar and everything correct.
So one thing to add is that even if we're saying like people do have a right to arm themselves, bear arms, whatever. When the Constitution was written, they did not have like automatic
It meant like
weapons
They
that
did not
could
have
discharge
Armalite
like
rifles.
6,000.
yeah, it meant like
Yeah.
muskets.
Yeah,
It meant muskets. But at the same time, you have to sort of understand like what the purpose of the amendment
Yeah.
would have been in the first place. But
You have weapons. You have the right to arm yourselves in case the
national
government
defense. In case the government gets fucked up and that kind of
right
stuff.
in case it becomes fascist
Right.
or
Yeah. Okay. So let me see here. Yeah. The actual amendment, as stated, is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And the first four words that are, or I guess the first three words because it's hyphenated, are very up for debate. A well-regulated militia. Now, traditionally, the definition of a militia has been held for centuries, for like since this was written. A lot of people believe that militia at the time was taken to mean all able-bodied. At the time, all able-bodied males. Basically, anybody that could join an army like had a responsibility sort of to keep and bear arms.
right.
Now, our definition of militia has changed over time. Essentially, like an organization like the National Guard.
yeah,
would be considered a militia.
that's kind of what
Yeah.
I think of when.
But
it
did
says
they
militia these
intend
days.
like a part of the federal government? Because I
Well-
guess the intention of the Second Amendment would be you arm yourself in the hypothetical situation the government became authoritarian or
Yeah.
fascist.
That's what that was meant. That was
right.
sort of what was
I
meant
mean,
to.
by if you interpret it as like the militia meant like say the armed forces, then wouldn't that technically be part of the government? Part of
Technically, however, one could assume that that's true, but you could think like the armed forces could recognize this. For example, the armed forces could recognize this, and then because remember that the armed forces are swear an oath to protect the Constitution, not the government. So one could say it gives to the armed forces basically the inherent authority to bear arms. That's how some people read that. I kind of disagree with that reading because it seems to, if you look at the historic definition of militia, it has to do with like citizen militias.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to bring up regarding that is well-regulated. Like the term like well-regulated. We're not talking about like a bunch of shit-kicking hicks and like backwoods of Mississippi, which connects actually also to the Civil War and which is why a lot of the Confederate Army failed because you had all these very unregulated militias with absolutely no training trying to defend certain parts of certain areas of those states that were
Well,
rebelling.
the Confederates actually knew how to use guns. Most of
Right.
them,
They did.
though.
They did,
Well,
but
then
the
again-
groups were kind of unregulated. That's sort of a reason why they weren't as well organized as a lot of the Union armies were.
Yeah.
then again, there's another argument like that. I don't think the founding fathers would even consider the fact that there are actually militias in this state that are white supremacist.
That's true.
That if you dig far enough, there are neo-Nazi groups that arm themselves. I don't think the white
and they
supremacists
identify as
ever,
militias, too.
Would
They
you
ever
call
imagine
them,
themselves-
militias though? Or?
they train.
They self-identify as
That's
militias. Some of them
sketchy.
self-identify as
That's
militias.
sus.
It is. Let me look up. There's this one particular group. I don't think they're
3%.
so active.
3%.
3%ers are one. I don't know if do they call themselves a militia?
Yes.
Okay. There's one other group I want to look up. They haven't
I don't
been
think
active.
the founding fathers never anticipated that. They
They
never
were-
anticipated white supremacists.
Well, they were themselves white supremacists, so that was like
Right.
normal at the time. But like reactionary white supremacist activity.
Yeah, they couldn't have anticipated like neo-Nazis.
They
stuff
couldn't,
like that.
they couldn't anticipate certain very strong paramilitary groups, and I want to connect that to a group that existed mainly in the '90s into the early 2000s, called the Militia of Montana.
What?
Yeah, it was called the Militia of Montana.
Militia.
Okay.
They were basically think of it as a very I'll just read like specifically what Wikipedia has to say about them. They organized against first of all the federal assault weapons ban as well as the Brady Handgun Violence Act, and they basically believed that threats to the Second Amendment were orchestrated by financial and corporate elites in a global conspiracy. So think about
Jews. They thought Jews were.
In-
possibly.
with three parentheses
Three
around it,
parentheses. Yeah, they were like New World Order conspiracy types, pretty much. Especially after the Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, and a big part of their fears, they were like very much into like Y2K, that kind of stuff. And once Y2K ended up being a nothing burger, basically Militia Montana sort of like they basically they disbanded pretty much. The membership really sort of plummeted after that. Although there were still a few people who were maintaining it. So specifically, they're promoting like 9/11 conspiracy theories as well as the financial crisis around 2007, the Great Recession. and they apparently. This is interesting. This may even be outdated. Hold on. Apparently, they still exist in like a bare bones form, and they print apparently they print a catalog of some sort. I don't know if this may be outdated information.
Yo, should we scope the catalog? See if we can find it.
Let me see if I can find it.
It might be funny.
Yeah, let me look this up. Militia of Montana catalog. Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay, this is from Southern Poverty Law Center. Oh, is this it here? Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's see. I see the Southern Poverty Law Center article, which I will look up, and I see another one called prepperpatriot.com. This is interesting.
Prepper. These like
you know what?
doomsday prepper people.
It might be.
Oh
I see.
god.
Hold on, let's see.
I see some
Doomsday
hashtags.
I see some
Preparedness,
hashtags.
survivalist.
Wiki. Okay, so this is a
Oh my
wiki
God.
apparently. So I don't know if this is actually like the catalog. I'll visit like. Let's see here.
Here, I'm gonna go to that website.
Doomsday Prepper.
Prepper Patriot. This kind of looks more like a wiki than anything else, but
We
I
could
haven't.
put the link to this.
Oh,
here.
Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yeah, this article is from 2001 though.
What
so
do they
it's-
say about?
So in 2001, the headline was once popular Patriot leader John Trockman now leads a mail order militia, is what they're sort of jokingly calling it. You know what? I have an idea. Let me go on the Internet Archive and see if I can find like the militia original website.
Okay.
I'll see if it's listed.
Wait, so you don't think they don't exist anymore?
I doubt it. Like, I mean, maybe like there are some people hanging on to it, but yeah, because like if you go to militiaofmontana.com, that's like a completely broken
I see.
URL.
This is a really garbage website, by the way.
It is, yeah.
What is the Militia
Prepper
Montana?
Patriot?
Prepper Patriot.
Yeah, like I
What
don't
does
even,
it say? What?
It says visit our blog, and it's a link to like some
like
directory that
it's a
has
directory that doesn't even have anything in it. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna sad. Let me Okay, I'm gonna go on the Wayback Machine, see if I can find like an actual like mirrored copy of militiaofmontana.com circa like 2000 or so. If this will load.
Alright.
Yeah, let me see. Actually, let me go on.
Yeah. Global Order. That's a fancy way of saying Jew. Or
You know, a lot of people.
Globalist.
Yeah. I think like there are some people like Alex Jones specifically says that he does not like really like he doesn't like buy into that kind of stuff about like Jews controlling everything because he just doesn't believe that's a thing.
I don't think he's not like a white supremacist.
He's
not
not.
Fucking off his rocker. Like,
You know, he's like he even had David Duke on for a debate because like yeah, like
you sent us the link to. I like watched.
what
part
did
of
he?
it.
Did he not like David Duke? What
no,
was-
okay,
No, he didn't like
he
David
hates
Duke.
David Duke, and the funny thing about it is like he, in a sense, like a lot of people believe Alex actually lost the debate, and the reason why is because like David like completely just like commandeered the entire broadcast, like would not let Alex get a word in, and you can see Alex just like looks so uncomfortable throughout the whole thing. it's ridiculous. It's hilarious.
Yeah, if someone can make Alex Jones uncomfortable.
So basically, David Duke neutered Alex Jones.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It's the most ridiculous thing. The debate's like 2.5 hours long. It's just insane.
Why didn't Alex like fire back? Why didn't he go crazy?
He couldn't because he could not get a word in. He literally like apparently like the day I've seen like a clip from like the show after the debate, and apparently after the show like Alex's people went through it. Apparently he wanted to do like a formal debate like 5 minutes each, like they were like just alternate like 5-minute periods. Turns out David Duke spoke 60% of the time, so like he just like would not like cede the mic over to Alex anyway.
Damn.
Oh yeah, so I found from the Internet Archive a copy of the site militiaofmontana.com dated November 28th, 1999.
Oh.
So let's
Alright.
take a
That's
look
old.
at this. Yeah, and apparently the new 1999 Militia of Montana Preparedness Catalog is linked somewhere. Let's see if they have the catalog linked as well. It's going to redirect to militiaofmontana.com/catalog. Let's see if they have any copies of it. Oh, here we go. All right, I'll just read off this.
dope.
I'm just going to read off the sections of the catalog really quick. The sections are preparedness books, preparedness videos, survival books, survival videos, self-defense books, self-defense videos, education books, education videos, medical and herb books, medical videos, police and military books, audio tapes, t-shirts, biological suits, components and gas masks, emergency survival food, potassium iodate tablets, and medical supplies and
So
first
there-
aid kits, chemical and biological agent reference chart, and apparently as linked it says banned books.
Oh.
I'm gonna take a look at that. Were you gonna say something?
Banned by whom?
So they're just a basic. Okay, let's.
Survivalists.
What books do they suggest?
Okay, in terms of the banned books,
Wait, are these books that they banned or books that
This is
are
okay.
banned that they think are cool?
so basically, okay, it's apparently the federal government has attempted to ban these books. Apparently, Section 402 of Senate Bill 254 makes it a crime to distribute and quote certain information relating to explosive, destructive violences and weapons of
Okay,
mass
so they're
destruction.
terrorists.
This
This is like anarchist handbook level
Yeah,
kind of
these
stuff.
books look like just like instruction manuals for how
Yeah.
to like make weapons.
like TM, like books like published by the army, like Incendiaries and Prize Musicians. Like they're actually selling these to people. Or they were at least. Like, oh god, Ragnar Benson's Big Book of Homemade Weapons. Finally, under one cover, all the information you need to build, maintain, and deploy your own heavy weapons and explosives, as well as the skills to protect them and you from nosy bureaucrats, neighbors, and potential enemies.
The deep state.
This book has all the nuts and bolts information from Ragnar's most popular books on homemade C4, flamethrowers, grenade launchers, high explosives, man-trapping, weapons caching, and gun running. Plus, all new chapters on hand and rifle grenades, claymore mines, and mortars. If you can no longer buy heavy weapons or explosives, you can build your own using these easy-to-follow instructions, photos, and illustrations for academic use only.
I mean, yeah, so you guys get the idea.
Explosives, you can... I know if you mix calcium carbide with water, you can get the explosive gas.
Yeah, and if you mix, there's a way to make mustard gas. I forget what it is, but yeah.
If there's any FBI, shout out to the FBI.
Shout out to Hal Turner's former assistant or something.
Shout out to my FBI
fuck the FBI.
agent.
They're a conservative law enforcement agency.
Yeah, so FBI guy listening, fuck you.
Go fuck yourself.
Jesus. Okay. Well, yeah.
Fuck the FBI.
Maybe that black helicopter will come back in the next few minutes.
I want to kill the president.
What?
I want to kill the president.
No, you don't.
Okay, let's not.
That's not going to trigger anything.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it will.
Don't
really?
Don't even do that.
I mean,
no.
There have been hosts that have gotten prosecuted for saying far less. But anyway,
right.
Charlie doesn't actually want to kill the president.
Nobody does. None of us do.
That's a joke.
Okay. Anyway, so we talked at length about.
Or was I kidding? No, it was a joke.
It was a joke. Okay. Okay. Let's, Julian, you want to talk a little about Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
So for those who may or may not have been following, there's an incident, I think maybe about a week ago now, where Ukrainian warships were crossing the Kerch Strait, which is it's like a strait that's connected by a bridge from Crimea to the Russian mainland that the Russians built not too long ago. It's like a highway. I think it's open right now.
Is it bridge?
Yeah, it's a bridge. But anyway, so Russia basically captured 3 Ukrainian military ships.
Shit.
And the sailors, the people on board, were detained, and Ukraine basically called it a provocation and escalated it and was complaining internationally, and Russia said yes, we did capture your ships because you guys were in violation. You should not have been. This is our territory, so this is definitely an escalation of tension, Russian-Ukrainian tensions in Crimea, and as a result, Ukraine not too long ago has just instated what's the martial law?
Yeah. Just
instated martial law until it's supposed to be, I think, the 26th of December, and part of that, they passed a law, this was a few days ago also, they passed a law that no Russian men aged 16 to 60 are allowed to come into the country in that time. And there was movements to at least some I don't know if it passed, but there's at least some talk in the Ukrainian parliament about banning women of that age too from entering Ukraine. So I mean that's temporary. That's gonna go away. Right. As things stand right now, probably gonna go away at the 26th of December. But that's huge. I mean this is the biggest escalation in Crimean tensions, I think, probably since 2014 maybe.
Yeah, it's nuts.
So yeah, it's a pretty serious international incident.
Man, I have to wonder if a lot of people are going to be fleeing Ukraine now.
Why?
Because there's so much tension. I have to wonder if a lot of Ukrainians are going to be moving out of that region into other parts of Europe.
I don't know. I don't think this incident in particular would force any kind of immigration or emigration.
Okay.
And the thing about that is in Crimea, they had the what's it called, the ballot, or what did you call it? Not a memorandum.
Oh, referendum?
Yeah, right. They had the referendum to see whether people wanted to become a part of Russia or whether they wanted to stay in Ukraine, and it was overwhelmingly, these results are very highly contested. The results was like 92% said they wanted to become part of Russia.
Wow.
If you look at polls asking like people in like independent polling agent like Russian or Ukrainian independent polling agencies who actually go into Crimea and ask like, would you rather like have stayed in Ukraine, or are you like happy that you're like now in Russian territory? It's not 90 to 10. I'll just put it that way. Like I think it's probably like it's somewhere around like 60% said they prefer Russian, but that's like a far cry from what the referendum results would have shown.
That's interesting. That's similar to actually a referendum that occurred in Puerto Rico not long ago, basically voting on whether to become a state or to maintain current relations with the U.S. I'll pull up the results for that.
Oh.
This let me see if I can find the not Puerto Rico U.S. vote.
What would happen if like all the because I know the Philippines, they're not a state. They're
the Philippines?
Yeah, Philippines, aren't they still like
Yeah, they're state.
The Philippines are a country.
They're a country.
Yeah, Puerto Rico is
the Philippines is not still a colony.
Yeah, sorry. I mean,
Puerto Rico, yeah.
Puerto Rico.
So Puerto Rico, basically, on June 11th, 2017, there was a referendum regarding the status of about like basically the status of Puerto Rico as a territory. There are three options, basically: statehood, independence / free association, or its current territorial status. Now, the results of the vote were 97% saying statehood. However, turnout for it was only 23%, which has been like a very low figure.
Yeah.
Typically, it's
Does
around
that basically just mean like no one gives a fuck? Like,
so basically, the reason why is because there was actually a boycott regarding this. There's a political party in Puerto Rico called the PPD. That's Partido Popular Democrático, which basically means Popular Democratic Party, and they were in favor basically of maintaining current relations with the U.S.
Where are they politically?
They are, let's see,
left or right?
They are pro-Commonwealth, liberalism, and social liberalism, so they're centrist.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a centrist political party in Puerto Rico. They were like trying to organize a boycott of the vote. Okay. So as a result, like you have like 23% turnout. Of those 23%, 97% wanted statehood. So, although in general, from what I've heard,
what's the pros and cons if Puerto Rico?
If Puerto Rico, the biggest pro is that they would get represent. If they became a state, they would have representation in Congress, and that's why a lot of people don't want it to happen because they don't want it to. A lot of people are like, this is particularly why a lot of Republicans don't want it. They would get 2 senators that would be reliably Democrat.
Oh, who gives? Oh, fuck the
That's a big reason why a lot of conservatives and Republicans don't want them to become states.
Well, okay, William, let's get into this. Let's say. So let's say like 75% of people voted and like 98% of them said yes, we want to become a state. Right. What would happen then if Puerto Rico passed the referendum? What would the federal government have to do? Or
they would. Oh, let me think. I'm trying to remember what the actual process is. There would, realistically, I'm not sure like if that would if there would be like very likely, because the referendum most likely would not be legally binding.
So the United States wouldn't recognize it?
Well, they might, depending on like whether the federal government wants them to become wants them to become a state, essentially.
Oh.
Let me pull up the stuff. I know how like states become part of the U.S. I just want to make sure that admission to the Union. That's right.
If Puerto Rico is not a state and it would be reliably Democratic, why wouldn't the Democrats be pushing that? Why wouldn't the Democrats be?
Some Democrats are. Bernie Sanders, in particular, was like in favor of statehood.
But why wouldn't every Democrat be in favor of that?
I think maybe because it's just like kind of a back burner issue for.
A lot of people believe there are other issues that are more important than this at the time, which, to be fair, is kind of true. Let me see. It's 431. I'm just looking at the Constitution right now. Okay. So Article 4, Section 3, Clause 1 of the Constitution says, new states may be admitted to Congress into the Union, but no new state shall be formed within the jurisdiction of any other state. And, without the consent of the legislature. So basically, Congress would have to vote on it.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's not how to get through the House.
Yeah, it's not like, it may happen in the future. I would give it maybe about 15 to 20 years or so. But I think a lot of people are just comfortable with the idea of there being 50 states. I think that's just like a lot of people believe
nice
that's a
even number.
Nice even number. There's only 2 of the states are outside of the mainland, and yeah, it's like I don't think like a lot of people are going to be comfortable with having another state.
I have an issue with that because what does that say about, like, I mean, I guess American culture in general is that these two states could probably benefit from being full statehood.
Yeah, they could.
And
And
yet
Puerto
we're
Rico
lazy and like I just have so many fucking issues with
Honestly, I don't have a very strong opinion one way or
That's
another.
fair.
I think that if Puerto Rico wants to become a state, they absolutely should be
Yeah.
allowed to and
I
have the
agree.
right to. But
I mean, even a lot of Puerto Ricans in the U.S., like they're like, yeah, it'd be nice if they became a state, but it's not like they have far more important things to deal with now,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
recovering from the hurricanes of last year, making
Yeah.
sure they don't go bankrupt, like that, all that
Right.
sort of stuff. Like a lot of Puerto Ricans don't consider this like a major issue that needs to be determined, like and then like
Yeah.
it demands to be
But,
solved. So there are some that do, but not a whole
Right.
lot.
Well,
like the
I mean,
Macedonia
so
referendum.
is every what is Puerto Rico currently?
The
They're-
It is
Territory.
essentially it's a territory. Basically, you can think of it sort of as
Okay.
a commonwealth.
So it was like Texas before it was a state.
Somewhat, yeah. It's been American territory, I believe, since 1898, sometime around then. I can look this up really quick so I can get the exact date.
Was Texas? Is there any other territory that was longer as a territory that before Puerto Rico before
think.
it became a state?
Well, there are other territories like Guam.
Alaska.
Well, Alaska. Let's see. Well, Alaska was purchased.
from Russia, and I actually saw a
yeah.
Russian meme about that where it's like top 10 cheapest like purchases on like Alibaba Express, and like it's a picture of Alaska.
Yeah. So basically,
I found it funny.
yeah. So the treaty. So basically, after the Spanish-American War, the U.S. took Puerto Rico as war spoils through the Treaty of Paris, and which took effect in April of 1899.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's basically how it
American
became.
imperialism.
Yep. And that's how
Yeah.
Cuba, before it was independent, became part of the U.S. Also.
Wait, Cuba.
Cuba, I believe so. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're not part of the U.S. now. I
They're
know
not now.
There's Guantanamo
Cuban
Bay,
Revolution.
which is technically considered U.S. territory.
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. So Cuba became a U.S. protectorate. That's basically what it was. They had like basically economic and political dominance over the land until.
There's no way that could have happened under Castro. Was that?
No, it was before Castro.
Was it during
the
Batista?
Cuban Revolution?
Or
What's
before? Was it during Batista or even before?
It was before that because
Okay.
it was still after the Spanish-American War, so this would have been late 19th, early 20th century.
I miss Che Guevara.
Okay. Let's talk about that.
Edgy.
Okay.
Sketchy.
Edgy.
Edgy. Oh. Okay.
Okay. Let's like, what do you believe the benefits of like supporting Che Guevara are?
I'm not gonna get into this.
If you want to discuss why, Charlie. If you want to, we don't have to talk about it.
No, we don't.
I mean, I agree with some of the things that Che
Yeah.
did, but
Well,
yeah.
I don't know.
Some what he stood for.
I
I mean,
how can I fuck? Where was I? I lost. How was I going to relate
You
this
just-
to
let's see.
Puerto
Talking about
Rico?
Che Guevara.
How was I going to do this? No, okay. I guess in terms of U.S. political dominance over a region, and yet,
I will be right back.
Okay.
well, I know. I think Puerto Rico is just the modern example. Well, it's.
Would you say it's similar to how Cuba was before the Cuban Revolution? Perhaps. I mean,
Yeah, I guess it just seems weird that in this day and age, the United States has territories that they're not states, but it's just it's
I understand what you mean.
deemed as American territory.
Right.
It just goes again. It just has that kind of.
And there are there are more
the modern
territories.
essence of American imperialism.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. And there are a lot of people don't realize it, but there are a lot of like random United States like land masses, especially islands that like are technically U.S. territories. Like even if you go outside, I'm just gonna pull up a list really quick. You list of U.S. territories. Even if you go outside like the Virgin Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico,
Guam too, yeah.
yeah, American Samoa, North Marianas. Let's
Yeah.
see. What do we have here?
Oh, vestiges of American imperialism.
Yeah, I mean they are. That's how a lot of them became part of the United States in the first place. Yeah, like even this list, current U.S. territories by group, like even them, like the unincorporated organized ones are Guam, North Marianas, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And there are other unincorporated, unorganized ones like American Samoa.
It's 3 states.
That
could be added to the U. 3 democratic states that can be added to the U.
Even 4 if you count depending on how you group them. Like you can talk about like Wake Island, for example. Like there's
Wake Island.
Wake Island, yeah, that's technically is a U.S. territory. We're just talking about right now about like just like various obscure U.S. territories that are technically part of the technically our territories, but they aren't really organized. We have
Virgin Island.
Yeah, Northern Mariana Islands, yeah, all those. Also Wake Island, which is like a coral atoll in the Pacific Ocean.
Most woke of the American territory.
Yeah, like literally, like there's like.
So they can't have any independence.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like Wake Island, like there's about 100 non-permanent residents.
I've never fucking heard of that.
Oh, so it's a military base.
Essentially, yeah, it's a military base / research station, as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
Yeah. Like literally, like the official population is 0 because it's all just like temporary.
Then why the fuck is it U.S.? Why can't it just be a territory? Why can't it just be an independent territory?
Because there's why bother? There's nobody even lives there.
Yeah,
so why?
It's not.
But again, what that has, the connotations that has, it's that idea that that's America's. America has that's ours. Like.
I mean, you're not wrong.
That is imperialistic.
I mean, what, you want to just give it to Kazakhstan?
No. No, just make it independent. Just say that's Wake Island, man. That's nobody's territory. That's just...
Well, who's going to govern it if it's independent?
Well, you said there's not residents there.
Just kidding.
The UN. I mean, well, yeah, but...
no, again, that is the tricky thing about being
an empire.
Well, yeah, empire, but being a human... We are a species that is very... We have different countries and shit like that, and if you look at the grand schemes of things, that is tribalism. It makes no fucking sense that we have countries, that we have fucking borders.
Well, it makes sense that we have countries.
We're all human beings.
But we are human beings that group ourselves based on these sort of constructs, and
But culture changes. Culture is dynamic.
It can, yeah.
It can change. However, there are a lot of people that are uncomfortable with there being this idea of a human race, because a lot of people define themselves based on their cultural goals.
And that's a fucked up way of living.
Look, I consider myself to be pretty international thinker, but I disagree with the idea that we should get rid of citizenship and we should get rid of nations and we should get rid of states and all that. I think it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, I understand, wanting to be, a global citizen, wanting to be a citizen of the world, wanting to be informed about international issues, but at the same time, this idea, there's a lot of people identify based on their kinship of whether it's an ethnicity, a culture, a nationality, because it's based on shared experiences. And the fact that these people have shared experiences is often based on certain elements of their culture. And if we don't have how do we instead define that as having a single world heritage that may look good, that may be good on paper, but at the same time, how are people going to define themselves? How are people going to decide how are they going to differentiate themselves based on their own experiences if the entire world has the same shared experiences or the same culture or heritage?
That assumption of same world heritage doesn't necessarily mean the destruction of old cultures. If you look at, say, America, we're a melting pot. We still carry those same vestiges of old Europe.
Melting pot of friendship.
You still have Italian culture influence. You still have
I have a problem with using the
French influence.
I have a problem with using the term melting pot because it assumes that there is a single American culture that everybody assimilates to. I would rather refer to us as a salad bowl culture
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess in that same sense that if this idea of embracing a internationalist tendency is you open up the idea to new cultures, new ways of thinking, new
it's awareness. International cultural awareness. That's a good thing.
But Charlie, you can do that within the context still of being an American citizen.
Yeah. Right. But the hypocrisy of what is America is of just the country itself, of just defining itself. We are a country. We are one.
Well, I think it gets weird when you get into American nationalism, because nationalism in places.
I'm not talking about America. I'm just talking about any country.
Well,
because if
nationalism.
If you look at the failure of defining a geographical region as a country, you look at Europe. You look at the influx of.
Look at the failure of defining a geographical region as a country.
It shows that when you do that, you have people that are born in, say, France who identify as French, and then when you have influx of immigrants from Syria, you have this tribalistic clash.
Yeah, clash of cultures.
Okay,
right.
That's fair.
And that is the one downside of tribalism of countries, of defining yourself in a geographical region of say, okay, this is France.
I think people
we're French in France.
Yeah, I think people outside of the U.S. do that a lot too. Yeah. Like it's definitely not just an American phenomenon.
I mean, America as a country has developed based on the intermingling of cultures. Like even back in the late 18th, early 19th century, you had people from all over Western Europe coming here from all sorts of countries because it was seen as it was literally seen at the time as the New World. That's where that term comes from. It was seen as this new land that although it had been inhabited before, a lot of people, if they weren't already aware of that, they saw it as an opportunity. Even if they were aware of it, they saw it as an opportunity to develop a new nation that was essentially a global nation in a sense. That's why the whole idea of being an American in the first place is not as cut and dry as being like part of the German Volk or part of being a British citizen. Like it's the idea of, or a British subject. It's part of this idea of being an American as what was traditionally seen, although this view has been questioned, and rightfully so, in recent generations, as being somebody that is not defined by one's nationality or country of origin, but being defined as being something separate and American.
Just a quick aside, Volk in German means like folk, people.
People, yeah.
Volk and wolf means Russian.
What are the Volk people?
So in German,
wolf people.
Volk.
Okay, yeah, the term Volk in Germany.
Yeah,
so in Germany, there's this concept of like a national identity or national people. Like it's not, the term Volk is not really easily translated into English. But
I mean, that's probably where we get the word folk from.
Yeah, folk. Yeah,
like you think of like kind of.
Yeah. Like it has to do basically with like a national identity and national heritage, being part of like the German people. Like it sort of transcends national identity, like having sort of a mindset. Yeah. And it's been used to like an extreme extent, to say the least, because the Third Reich essentially, they classified people in Germany as being part of the Volk or not, and like then we could go on and on about who was considered part of the Volk and who wasn't, but that goes outside the scope of what we're discussing now, honestly.
I guess to finish my what I was saying, so we can move on to something else.
Okay, the Russian Volk has nothing to do with that.
It's not.
To say that, okay, my issue with like countries and just defining a part of the world as a country, defining like, oh, you're in that country, so you're therefore like French, or you're in Spain, you're Spanish, is if you look at, say, countries that existed at one time, say the Byzantine Empire, or say Rome, like the Roman Empire. People thought probably at one time that, oh, I'm Roman, like I'm in Spain and I'm a part of the Roman Empire. I'm Italian. It's just
Italian is also fairly
complete nonsense. It changes.
Italian is also fairly recent construction.
Yeah, like you have like Northern Italians, Southern Italians, Sardinians, Sicilians. It's a very generic kind of thing.
Right.
Before the 20th century, there wasn't really the idea of like
being an Italian
in the way that there is now.
Yeah, it was a lot more regional in a sense.
Yeah.
That, I guess, my argument is that countries in some way are a tribalistic concept.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, especially the development of countries.
Yeah.
And there's that black helicopter again.
Charlie, what did you do?
I think it just went past, but anyway, yeah. Let's see. Let's see. What would we talk about? We've talked about
Have anything else on our
We could
docket?
talk about black helicopters.
We'll leave that up to someone with a little bit more time on his hands than us. But anyway, I'll touch on this. There is this is just some quick Chicago news, particularly if you live near the Loop.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, what the
fuck? Was that
Yeah,
me?
that's yours.
Oh,
yeah.
my phone.
Sounds your cell phone. But anyway,
Start that silent.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, so there is basically this sort of urban, we can call it an urban renewal plan for the, this is for the West Side. Basically, what this is going to center on the,
Wait, West Side? Where is, I like, you sent this to me
sure.
earlier. I didn't
So this is
see on a
basically,
map.
technically it's the West Side, but it's like kind of close to the Loop. So it's, I think the area
West Loop?
It's not the West Loop, it's west of that. It's, I believe it's it's near Douglas Park, I believe.
Okay, I'll look that up.
So it's technically the West Side, sort of like, it's not far from the West Loop, but it is further west than the West Loop. It technically is the West Side. Let me just, so the place is, the division of it's going to be called Ogden Commons. It's basically what this new development is. It's southwest, it's southwest of the Illinois Medical District. Let me see if I can find the actual boundaries of it. Okay. So it's on Ogden Avenue in between Fairfield Avenue and Rockwell Street, which is sort of it's basically
like west of Pilsen.
Yeah, it's in basically North Lawndale.
Got it.
Is where it is, which is like traditionally been a very disinvested area. Like ever since this is was it where?
Yeah, this is pretty west of the Loop.
It's pretty west of the Loop. North Lawndale is like until about the 60s, it was a very white, particularly Jewish area. But then a lot of like white flight occurred, as well as a lot of disinvestment in the 50s and 60s because a lot of the factories closed down around then. And it was not quite where the riots happened in 1968, but it's in that area, and it was like negatively affected as well because of the disinvestment. And so it's also near a large plant for the Lagunitas Brewing Company. So there are going to be some jobs coming back in.
I love Lagunitas.
Oh yeah,
good beer.
Yeah, and this is actually a big reason that's being placed here is because it's near the CineSpace Chicago Film Studios, as well as Mount Sinai Hospital. Those studios are where shows like Chicago Fire, Empire, Chicago PD, like all those shows are filmed around there. And a lot of one has to wonder though, how is this going to affect the surrounding area? Is this going to gentrify the area? Although, unlike certain plans of this nature, they're going to be, if the zoning is approved by the city council, there's going to be up to 393 residential units built there, 50 to 70% of which will be either CHA, like Chicago Housing Authority, public housing, or below market affordable housing. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this develops. It's possible that somewhere down the line that we don't really know at this point how expensive overall the things the units are going to be, but at the same time there are that's a very I've been around North Lawndale before. I've subbed at the neighborhood high school for there are a lot of vacant lots, a lot of ramshackle houses, very few businesses around there. So to see that this is going to be developing, it's going to be interesting to see how that affects the dynamics of the neighborhood that currently exists.
Is it a safe neighborhood? Is it a little?
It's not safe. No.
Dicey.
It's dicey. It really is not a very safe neighborhood currently. I've been around there. It's like.
Oh wait, Lawndale. Is that by the Garfield Park Conservatory?
It's kind of close to that. Let me see. I need to look at the map.
That's another. That's one of the few South Side places that I.
Well, West Side, but yeah.
Spent any. Let's
see. Let me look this up. It's I think Ogden and Rockwell. Okay, I remember. Now I have an idea of where this is. Okay, so it's actually a little bit southeast, I believe, of Garfield Park. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I see where it is. So, yeah, if you just look right here, it's this is Lawndale here, and then Garfield Park is going to be in this area. I believe the conservatory is right here, actually.
Yeah, no, the conservatories. It's cool, yeah, if any of our listeners looking for something to do on a weekend.
I've actually never been to the conservatory. I've subbed I've subbed at Al Arabia High School, which is literally across the street from it. I've subbed at Marshall.
I would say next time you're in the hood, I would say pop by.
Yeah, pop by. I've never been to, so technically the neighborhood high school for North Lawndale, excuse me, is Manley High School. It's Manley, I think technically Manley Career Academy is what it is. I have subbed there. It's one of the schools that's hollowing out because of all the charters opening up around there. There's also Collins Academy, which used to be a neighborhood high school, but it's now more sort of an alternative kind of thing. It's more of, I think it's actually college prep, technically, but yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how whether that's going to maintain its whether the current environment's going to stay the same, or if it's going to become another Fulton market with outrageous real estate prices, and the residents that live there may be driven out further to God knows where, but who knows. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to tell at this point. All right, so we've been on for like about 70 minutes.
Shit.
You guys want to talk about anything else?
I don't have anything offhand.
Want to talk about anything else, Charlie? I think any Spoosa inside info.
Spoosa. Not really. I mean, okay, we have like 20 minutes to kill.
Well, I mean, we don't have to go to
Well, yeah.
hour and a half.
No, not that I can think of.
I mean, that sounds about right. Let me just say that also, if you look on the screen, we have our email address, radiosheridan@gmail.com. Let us know if you want. If you let us know if you have any tips, anything else you want to discuss, just send us an email.
Subscribe.
Comment, like, subscribe. The classic trifecta. All right. So with that said, I guess since we're pretty much done at this point, we will conclude this edition of Radio Sheridan. Thank you for joining us.